3 Air Force bases in New Mexico, and we have the world's 2 biggest Army bases. They're White Sands Missile Range, and yeah, there you go. And then Fort Bliss, everyone thinks Fort Bliss is in Texas, but just this little corner is in Texas, and the rest of it is actually here in New Mexico. And I'm going to speak a little bit. There we are. We protested at the legislature. The legislature had a hearing where only the Air Force was allowed to speak. No member of the public. I had my senator and another senator I'm friend with go up to the chair asking to let me speak, and they turned down their own committee members and said, we set this up so only the Air Force could speak at this hearing. So we protested outside. Tony, who's here, is holding up a map, and all the black right now is current. This is a map the private pilots have to use. That's all restricted airspace. Flying around New Mexico is not an easy thing to do without getting shot down. You know, you have to know all those areas where you have to go. So next, it's just, okay, we've got the 3 Air Force bases. We have the laboratory, the nuclear bomb factory. We also have what used to be the world's, or the nuclear, where we would take military nuclear waste. It's closed for no one knows how long because of February of last year. There was both a truck that caused a fire, and then there was an accident where one of the safe drums, they said, actually exploded, and plutonium was released above ground, came up the shaft and came out into the environment, which is kind of historic, again, for Carlsbad. Carlsbad had a bomb test in the 50s that went bad, and you can look it up, where it actually leaked plutonium. It was supposed to be an underground bomb test. The Trinity site, where the first atomic bomb was detonated near Alamogordo, that community is suffering, and they're finally getting, for the first time, a health study. A little late for them. So we can, go ahead, thanks. This is restricted airbase currently, and does not show MOAs. MOAs are the military operations areas, which are huge. So this was just to show, these are bases in the Southwest Defense Complex. So the next slide shows, this showed up first in what some people would say very conservative or right-wing media. Someone leaked this slideshow to people about this from July to September of this year. There are going to be special ops war games potentially anywhere. They said there would be no advance pre-notice. And you notice that they have indicated Texas, Utah, and Southern California as definitely hostile. And then New Mexico is uncertain, leaning hostile. Light blues are uncertain, leading friendly. And we want to know hostile to who and friendly to who. Because the fact that people are getting paid to create the largest ever dealing with civilian uprising, that's what this is about, having ground forces on the ground, and it says in the document that they might be able to land in my field, on my private property, and unload a bunch of people with backup, with SUVs and other things, and conduct an operation. Peaceful Skies has sent a letter to the governor of New Mexico. We sent it, no response whatsoever, although I did get a receipt that she got it, saying that it must be restricted in New Mexico to, she can't say stop the whole thing. So we said, please let the Pentagon know this could only happen on the military bases, not on any private or public land, or Playas, New Mexico, because the state of New Mexico taxpayers actually bought the town of Playas, New Mexico for the Department of Homeland Security for their urban warfare practice. It's operated by New Mexico Tech University. And it is an old mining community, and the mine shut down, and there was a town with very few people in it. So the entire town was bought for practicing. On Cannon's website, I had a very interesting reaction with the leadership because we followed them around Colorado and New Mexico to all their public hearings. So I had gotten to know Colonel Buck Elton pretty well, and so when I was on their website, they had a big thing about Colonel Elton participates on Kill Team, and they had a video, and they showed all over New Mexico are Afghan villages. To me, they look like Taos Pueblo or Picaris or Santa Clara. There are 22 on Fort Bliss. There's several on Cannon. So they practice breaking down people's doors, going in and killing people. And that's what a kill team and a kill house, and they're all over New Mexico, so I assume there are probably plenty in Arizona and other places. I found one place there on public land in California, on Forest Service land, actually permitted them to construct a village on our public lands, which is so outrageous to me because the Forest Service here stopped a project, an irrigation project in my community because we were going to have a concrete truck cross 50 feet of Forest Service land. And they stopped our project. Our community is still suffering without water, irrigation water. And then I go and start finding they are constructing villages for war games, all this stuff on the Forest Service with easement and casual use permits that the BLM and the Forest Service are giving the military access. We don't want this to happen because what I worry about, and I put in the governor's letter and I can share it with people later, what if someone didn't get the message that it was practice? What if something lands in your yard and all these people come out with guns? Well, many people are well armed and might shoot thinking they're defending themselves and their property, and then does it go from blanks to real? How does anyone know? How will every single person in all of those states know that this is just a military exercise? And how could the president of the United States allow something like this to happen? When it first came out, the military said, well, we're not sure that's accurate. We don't know who created that map. We're going to tell you on March 31st. On March 31st, they confirmed to the Washington Post that, in fact, this is their plan. This is in the works. And, this is what summer and fall will look like here if we're not careful. Next slide, please.
Carol, how can we get a copy of that map?
Well, I can share it, and also if you just go Jade Helm 15, it's all out there.
It's in the Washington Post article, I think.
Yeah.
Too.
So I just want to say, when we started, we went after our congressional delegation right away. We had to tell people, this is what they want. You might be trying to get $100,000 for your acequia, your irrigation system, but this is what they want. But what I didn't realize before I got into this, and you can move to the next slide, this is what they said they were going to do, low altitude training. What they always do is they come out and they've got this huge area. Okay, so next slide. Then they say, oh, look, we cut it. And so there's that little line, the red, is what the Air Force said they were cutting back because we were so opposed to it. But what they didn't say is the big rectangle in purple already is a low altitude training area, but it's not cannons. That's Peterson Air Force Base and Fort Carson. They already had, they are very creative. We try, they pay people a lot of money, and I'm sure they sit in those meeting rooms and they go, we'll show them that big map, and then they'll think they won some concessions, but in reality, we didn't win anything with that. They already had that. Next slide. So this is what happened first. They had, just comparing how we were able to stop it, they were not used to anything. They had done their big EIS. They had 3 meetings. They were all Clovis, Fort Sumner, Clayton. They're all very much adjacent to Cannon. And they had 19 people comment in total at the 3 meetings. 131 participants. When we started organizing, we had 855 people, these are their numbers, show up at meetings. And, we were able to generate 1,898, 1,900 comments by organizing. They won't even say how many people have commented. This is why they dropped that project for the time being. They had just opened something they weren't really prepared for. Next slide. But a German newspaper, Der Spiegel, talked about this, the woes of an American drone operator, and this is coming out more and more. And anyway, just saying there he was, but the next page, and you can read it. Cannon Air Force Base. I had the legislative director of Senator Bingaman, when he was still senator, tell me there were no drones at Cannon. I have to read a German paper that someone sends me. I send it to Bingaman's guy, and they're like, oh, news to us. Really? I don't think so. And there was another article in the New York Times when they let some reporters on to Holloman to get to see how great all the drone stuff was, and the reporter said, wait, isn't that right outside the base? They were targeting someone driving their SUV adjacent to the base. And that is how they practice. How they practice is you're driving down the road, minding your own business, and somewhere someone is sitting there and they've got the crosshairs on your truck. That's how they practice. That's what targeting means when they talk about the kinds of training that they're doing. Next slide. This, I know you can't read it, but this was a big press release from the Air Force that our state lands, they gave state lands to expand the Melrose bombing range. The state lands are for education of our children in New Mexico. The big press conference, big deal about that. We now have a bigger bombing range for Cannon Air Force Base. Next. Cannon has no water. How can they expand? Well, our legislature, they give them money to acquire land and water rights statewide. Anyone else getting any help for water rights? I don't think so. So you see, states are subsidizing the military to a huge extent that most people are not aware of. Every governor's office has a whole base planning commission. When Cannon got this new mission, the state built them a new road. They built them a brand new middle school. Holloman's got a new clinic under construction right now. These are state funds on top of what the federal government already is putting into these. So if anyone in state government tells you they don't have money, like they do in the federal government, it's going to subsidize the military. Next. White Sands Missile Range, one base, 17% of all the land. And here's what they do. We will aggressively expand our customer base of traditional, non-traditional DoD, other government agencies, foreign military and commercial programs. It's a rent-a-base for money, okay? Doesn't matter all the people that are there. Keep going. I'm going to really try to move pretty quickly. Fort Bliss is the second biggest Army base in the world, and what they don't tell us is base one, number 1 and number 2, they are identical. It's really just one big base with Holloman kind of in the middle. Next. So Holloman, they're a stealth base. They have people's windows get broken all the time. Their car alarms go off. They have a website, and someone was going to try and close in. The sonic booms are one of their biggest things. Next. Okay, here's how many currently. They have 103,000 flights a year. I mean, all of us can do the math. Their congressman, Steve Pierce, is trying to get the F-35. If the F-35, it'll be 150,000 flights a year of the noisiest aircraft ever. And then,
Have you calculated the cost of that?
yeah,
I mean, it's radical.
yeah. And then they go up, they fly, and then they bomb things. So 260,000 munitions blown up. They're big. We're not talking the bullets that we saw on the ground-based people up in the national forest. We're talking about weapons and training flares. The numbers they're just phenomenal what's going on. Next. And that's actually the full southern New Mexico joint land use study area. It's because it includes the tribal land. Fort Bliss is the big beige thing. See that, just that tiny little piece in Texas of Fort Bliss? I mean, I even thought it was all in Texas. Little did I realize, and see how Fort Bliss butts right up there to White Sands, and you got
Ruth, that's your
Holloman
place up there,
in the middle,
where
and
she's at.
that's what's going on right now in New Mexico. Next. Kirtland. Here's Kirtland's mission statement. Conduct nuclear operations, and their priority, strengthen gains in the nuclear enterprise mission. I don't want another nuclear bomb ever to be dropped anywhere in the world. And yet, our state leaders are patting Kirtland on the back all the time and underlying all their other missions. This is their primary mission, to be the people that will drop a bomb, a nuclear bomb or bombs, somewhere when the order comes in. Next. Here's the jet fuel. 24 million gallons. We heard about the Exxon Valdez. We have twice as much jet fuel under the ground in Albuquerque that leaked. Now, I've worked for the federal government, and, no one is auditing you. Why are you buying more and more fuel and no one's noticing that you haven't used what you had? Where'd it go when those tanks were empty? Where was there anything approaching accountability to the people? Nowhere. And so they said it was 100,000 gallons, that's bad enough. But no, 24 million gallons of jet fuel disappeared in Albuquerque without anyone in the Air Force noticing. Okay, that is stunning to me, absolutely stunning. And here's the thing, for someone who's worked in public health, I don't want to, really bum you out. We don't know what to do about any of this. We have no clue. We don't know how to make unsafe things safe. Burying nuclear waste is like humankind's most primitive solution to problems. Well, we'll dig a hole and we'll put it in the ground. That doesn't work anymore. We're talking about toxic materials. We're talking about a lot of things. And if you've ever heard anyone discuss synergy, I never do at any of these meetings. So synergy is where two things might be bad, But those two things together are 10 times worse. There is no funding for research into synergistic effects among all of the environmental things that humankind, animal kind, sea life, air. Zero. You will not find it anywhere, except if they can say the problem was caused by smoking. Okay? Because smoking, it's the person's fault. You know, the diabetes epidemic, nobody wants to talk about. Why don't people's pancreases work anymore? I mean, people have been eating all kinds of food for a long time. There's underlying very large public health things that are not going to be addressed. Agent Orange is one of the biggest risk factors for diabetes and other health problems. And there's a lot of denial still about that. I work very closely with the Hanoi chapter of Veterans for Peace and supporting the work around Agent Orange. And I've been to Vietnam 3 times, and we're guilty of war crimes, all of us. I saw, you know, I was there a year and a half ago. I saw my first 4th generation Agent Orange affected baby in a Buddhist orphanage. Marilyn?
I was wondering, isn't there some relationship between Agent Orange and Roundup?
Yeah. We could get to that later.
Okay.
So the next slide. So they have open house on all these spaces, so you could never start them too young, right? I mean, this was on Kirtland's website one time, and I just thought, okay, honey, get up there and, yeah, what a great picture. We all like posted
They've
it on
taken
our
all these away, they
Facebook.
don't exist on there anymore.
Next slide. I think I only have, okay, where's that economic benefit from military spending? That's a map of poverty in New Mexico. And it's slightly outdated, it's not too different. That little white dot in the middle, that's the wealthiest county in the US. That's Los Alamos. Where I live, and you know, if I'd had more time, what's happening with poverty we always say Social Security is going to run out because people are living longer. Actually, that's not true. We just had the biggest decrease in life expectancy among rural women, greatest loss of potential life ever in the history of this country, and my county, Rio Arriba, tops that list. Okay, so show me that economic benefit. Where is there any economic benefit? All those red counties underneath that blob over there, they're all adjacent to Cannon Air Force Base. They are high poverty counties. Okay, Holloman's in the sea of red. We have no economic benefit from it at all. What we have is higher cancer rates, we have higher crime rates, we have poverty that is so unjust. I mean, I know we've got school teachers, retired school teachers in the room. I see that poverty every day. We're burying one of our kids in Ojosarco on Tuesday, and we're losing our kids because we're wasting all of the resources of this state, polluting all of our natural beauty. For what? To go to other countries and kill and ruin their country also.
Carol, that must be the only reasoning I can see for an economic benefit, because so many of our students join the Army, Navy, Air Force, because that's the only thing in our town. Right.
Yeah. So
And also
anyway,
to add a little credibility, Carol's over the other side of the hill from me, and where I live, I have often thought helicopters are going over my house. Are they going to land in the field right in front of me? And I see low planes. Before you made those 1,800 comments, the planes did not respect flying 500 feet above a person or a house. And I have come out and seen what I think are DMs, huge aircraft, 2 of them coming through our valley, and then there are the stone bluffs, and they're probably playing games of how close can we get into that canyon, and where the other stones are on the bluffs, how close can we get to that pinnacle? And you know, if they crashed, the jet fuel could cause a forest fire. So, just a little personal reality of the war games.
Yeah, it is, and it's not games. There's no difference to an elk of a training flight or a war. I mean, you know, we have to be realistic. It's war. It's war. I call it war practice. I hate the word game. I always put it in quotation marks. But I'm over time. We all are. I want to thank everyone for their patience.